Hey folks, Rocco here from Simmer.io. In this episode, I'll be talking to John Arnold from Handelabra Games about running a successful indie studio based on making digital versions of tabletop games. We'll talk about some of the hard work behind Eon's End, which is available now on Steam, community building with Twitch and YouTube, and running successful Kickstarter campaigns. Handelabra's next game is Spirit Island Digital, a twist on the old Settlers genre, and you can catch a sneak peek towards the end of this video. Cool, so today I'm here with John Arnold from Handelabra Games. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, Handelabra Games.
Like Candelabra, I guess? It's a
Exactly,
play on
just
that?
like Candelabra. Jeremy's last name is Handel, and his dad always said you have to have your name on the front of your business. So
Definitely, I hear you.
that's where that comes from.
So you've been working with him for a long time, it looks like, for about 10 years, according to your LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've actually started working together towards the end of 2009.
Wow.
And yeah, we started off doing more of an app studio.
Hmm.
So general sort of, we had a clock app and a photo app and, reminders and all these different things, including some games. And we were working together on that. We sort of had a few other people working with us as well for about, let's say, I think that was about 3 or 4 years. And then in 2013, we basically didn't end up having any much success with that. It was basically, a crowded marketplace and very difficult to, stand out and be noticed when there's thousands of other apps competing for free or $1, right? So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's interesting that you said that because we all know that games is not a crowded marketplace. I guess I don't know, but it seems like you guys have found your niche and are putting out projects sort of on the regular. It sounds like. Is that right?
yeah. So to follow on the history a little bit, in 2012, I believe, we had our game Uncle Slam at PAX, which is
Hmm.
it was a presidential boxing game.
Ah, nice.
Which was a fun little game and kind of quirky and kind of different. But we also discovered, it's really difficult to market something that people don't know about, right? That's the hardest part of
Indeed.
game development, really, is the marketing side. But we happened to be next to another company called Greater Than Games that were just starting selling. Actually, it must have been 2011. Yeah, it was 2011. They were just starting selling their Sentinels of the Multiverse card game. And so we talked to them, and we're like, "Oh, hey, we could totally bring this onto, iPads and iPhones. We should talk about that." And so it took years, but eventually we wore them down. And so yeah, so we decided to pivot our company and sort of reboot into Handelabra Games in 2013 and 2014.
Hmm.
And we've really been focused on that digital tabletop marketplace, which is actually not as crowded as a general games marketplace.
Right. And
Because
if you get a license that someone knows, you've already
exactly.
got somewhat of a user base right there. Excuse me.
Sorry, yeah, yeah, you're exactly right. That's one of the huge benefits of digital tabletop is you already know it's a good game. You don't need to worry about is it balanced, is it fun. That's
Right.
already in the bag, right? So I already did that work. And also, you have tens of thousands of people who are playing it. They're already enjoying it. They're already fans, and so you have that built-in fan base, built-in marketing angle to go with that you don't have if you're starting from scratch with something else.
Definitely. I can definitely understand that. So you said the first one that you did was called, can you refresh my memory?
Sure. Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Sentinels of the
Uh,
Multiverse. I'm not a
yeah.
super big tabletop gamer, although I've played the entry level things like Ticket to Ride and all that.
Yep.
But so tell me about the process that you went through. I guess with that game, or maybe if you want to talk about your current games, with actually working with the tabletop publishers. I'm pretty curious about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we didn't really have any model going in besides, we'd done a little bit of client work, actually an app for Drano, believe it or not.
Drano, like the
Yeah,
thing that you
like
shouldn't drink.
Clog Doctor. It was actually the last one of our old apps that survived on the App Store before Apple like eventually removes stuff if it doesn't get updated
Oh,
or
right.
isn't compatible. But like it lasted until like I think last year it finally got pulled.
Oh, darn.
But
I
so we
was
had some experience.
really hoping to
Yeah,
get that.
yeah. Sorry, I'll send you the source code if you
Uh,
want.
uh,
You can build it yourself.
I
Learn
just
about.
know that my kid is not supposed to drink Drano. That's all I know.
I feel like no one is supposed to drink.
No, no.
Sorry if that was your experience in the past. Was enjoying it.
No, we went on vacation once, and the kid the first thing he found, of course, under the kitchen sink
Right.
was the Drano, and I'm like, oh my god, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah,
we were talking about how you sort of manage those things with the publishers.
Yeah. So in this case, it was actually really sort of a soft entry because we had met them at PAX, and I became a fan of the game. I really enjoyed it, played it all the time, and I actually, since I was playing it all the time, one of the things about Sentinels is you're keeping track of like this hero punches that thing for 3 damage, and there's all these sort of effects and HP tracking happening around the game. So there's lots of little bits on the table, not as much as like Netrunner or something, but like there's still a bunch. And so I thought, why don't I make an app that helps you keep track of that kind of stuff? And I called it Sentinel Sidekick. I actually just made it on my own, sort of a part-time fun project. And before like putting it out there, I asked Jeremy, because I was still working with Handelabra, but just still do the fun things on the side sometimes.
Right.
And I was like, do you want to publish this under a company or just I can have it on the side? And he's like, oh yeah, let's publish it. And why not put it on the App Store for $1, Sentinel Sidekick, and see how it does.
So you did that for free. You didn't do that for that company. It was just like a project.
We just did that on our own. Yeah, as like a fan, basically a fan project, right? But like under our company, so we had some support behind it. And then after a little while, we were more involved with them, and we were able to secure like a license agreement with them, so we could have the actual official artwork and say this is an officially licensed product, blah blah blah, right? So for some royalty on that, so they were really, they didn't have to do anything for that, right?
Right.
I think they might have
throw the assets your way, and you go to town, and they collect maybe a small revenue stream out of it.
Exactly. They just send us some JPEGs, and they get some small revenue kickback from that. But that sort of was the start of that business relationship, and that I think as we continue to grow that product, they realized that we knew what we were doing, and we could be trusted to respect their IP and all that kind of thing, because that's super important, right? You don't want to license your IP to someone who then makes some sort of horrible thing with it, or
right, like put smiley faces,
it, right? And so
on some dragon or something like that, it just makes it look like
googly
crap.
eyes on everything.
Right. Yes.
I mean that would be fun, anyways. But
I'm looking for the mod of Aeon's End. I'm actually gonna pull this over your face just so that people can see it here. And we'll get back to your beautiful face in a few minutes.
Sure.
But anyway, I'm just gonna have this open. This is the card game that John is working on. I loaded it up on my machine. Graphics are super beautiful. Look great in 4K actually, which is cool.
Yeah, the art style of Aeon's End is really, it's really kind of high fantasy, but also really gritty. So it's kind of a cool aesthetic that they have.
Can I have this play without it making noise? Let's see.
There's options to turn down the volume.
Oh, we got the screenshots. We'll go with that for now.
Okay.
Some really nice artwork. It looks really cool.
I'm trying to remember the name of the studio. They use a studio to develop all their artwork, and so we've actually had we have some brand new content coming up that were unlocked with stretch goals that are going to be some brand new content from the same studio.
Right. Yeah, so let's get into that. So you released this Aeon's End, or you started the release process with a Kickstarter, is that right?
Yeah. So with Aeon's End, similar to what we did with One Deck Dungeon before, we sort of got in contact with the IP holder, which in this case is Indie Boards and Cards, and now I'm blanking. But Lone Oak Games, Indie Boards and Cards, and Action Phase.
Yeah, I have Action in my notes here.
Action Phase is basically Kevin Riley, and he's the designer. And then Indie Boards and Cards is the publisher who, they handle all the nitty gritty of getting it printed and running the Kickstarters and that sort of thing.
So they did some of the work for you with the Kickstarter.
Well, not exactly. They have run Kickstarters for the physical game since I think 2015 was the first. 2015 or 2016 was the first Aeon's End Kickstarter, and they've done one every year for like a big sort of new box game that's fully compatible and everything. And so they've been pumping out content for that for a couple of years now, and so we worked with them directly, to figure out, what's the funding model going to be, what's the, the back end revenue share and all that kind of stuff. What we found moving forward, like our initial deals tend to be more risk heavy on our side, but moving forward, we found it to be better to have more of a partnership, like even more of a partnership, right, where each side is more invested in it from the beginning and in the end. So then you get more participation from the publisher on everything, right? And that's been really good for us and for them to be involved and be part of the whole process, because we work directly with the game designer with Aeon's End. That's Kevin Riley. Sentinels, that's Christopher Bedell, and Adam Radtaro, the artist as well. And then with One Deck Dungeon, it's Chris Sislick. So we want to make sure that we're respecting their vision for the game, on the tabletop, and bringing it into digital in a really cool way that preserves that, but also extends it in a way you can't. So on the tabletop, and so with our Kickstarters, we basically we try to set up financially a way that we can make sure that we can build a product and make it a nice product without having a lot of risk on the project. So we secure usually about half to 2/3 of the funding to begin with, whether it's partially from ourselves, partially from the publisher, or other sources, and then we go to Kickstarter for the remainder. So it's not, you look at the Kickstarter amount of 30,000 or 40,000, like it costs a lot more than that to make a digital board game, but sort of that's like the finish line, or just the final stretch of the funding comes from Kickstarter, and then it gives an opportunity for the fans to show their support, to be invested in the process all the way through, and maybe get to some stretch goals and go even further than just the core game.
So what sort of costs do you have besides your basically your need to eat and have a place to live and stuff like that? Are there other sort of hidden costs when you go in that direction?
Yeah, it's a good question. We do have, of course, our staff. We're a pretty small company still. We have 7 people.
Oh, wow.
But, so small, but not like just me and Jeremy or anything anymore. We have some programmer and art folks, and and there's other development support and marketing support and that sort of things that we don't necessarily they're not necessarily writing lines of code, but it's still 100% necessary to keep things moving.
Right. I've learned that marketing is more important than I thought as a heads down programmer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so and then direct marketing costs are definitely there. Like there's some advertising, especially during Kickstarters. We try to promote the Kickstarter, and you can read a lot about that sort of thing. Is like, you want to make sure if you're spending $1 on a Board Game Geek ad that you're getting, that it's going to get $3 in pledges or whatever the ratio you're looking for is, right? So you want to make sure you're not just throwing money into a hole.
Indeed.
Which we have done. We've thrown lots of money into holes in different projects in the past in marketing. So it's a learning curve for sure.
I've certainly felt that myself.
Yeah, we found Board Game Geek is pretty good for our specific niche, of course. And Facebook ads can be effective too, but also you have to be careful about how you set them up.
Right.
Because sometimes they end up like targeting people who already have bought your game, right? And so they don't need to be advertised to, and so that sort of thing. What else? We were talking about other costs. So we do have some sort of software and services and servers and that kind of cost. It's not like as big as you might imagine, like an enterprise thing or whatever, because there's so many great services. Like we use Bitbucket, we use we're on Skype right now, which is free mostly. We use Slack. A lot of these sort of services, Trello, are very reasonably priced or free
Right.
for small companies, and we can do a lot of our process without needing a big enterprise
As soon as you
system.
get to 10 people on Atlassian stuff, though, it skyrockets.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to stay at 9 or keep those marketers out of Bitbucket or whatever.
have have a vote off once the 10th person comes.
Right. Oh my goodness. There you go. The
But yeah,
reality show of
yeah.
Handelabra games.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else, but that's generally like sort of the day-to-day stuff. We don't actually, since our company is kind of a virtual company almost, in that most of our people are remote. Like I'm right now in Halifax, Nova Scotia, up in Canada. We have someone else here who works from home. Someone in Chicago, a few people in Cleveland, but there's actually only 2 people come into an office at all. And that's more of a like personal preference for Jeremy. He wants to have an office he can go and separate out from home life, right? So
I hear you.
And so that's we don't really have a lot of, we don't have Handelabra Studio or Handelabra Games office building somewhere that you have to pay for and all the associated fixed costs there. So
Right.
And I actually travel around the world all the time, so I have usually no fixed address. These last
You're able to stay focused and get your work done. Clearly, you are, because I played the game and it's out, and it's actually pretty hard to fake that, I think.
Yeah, and that's definitely a skill set that is not everyone has, or it doesn't take easily to, is being able to focus on work without that separation. Or without, necessarily having the water cooler or whatever.
Right.
For me, it definitely has taken, I started working remotely basically when I started working with Jeremy, because I was in Edmonton, Alberta, and he was in Cleveland, and we actually didn't meet for like 6 months after we had started working together. We hadn't met. We met at WWDC in San Francisco that first year. But so got used to working remotely, and sort of, it's really making sure that you keep track of what's going on, and have we try to keep our development process pretty lean, so we don't have a ton of overhead. But we try to sort of do agile with the lowercase a, is how I say it, where we try to we have a weekly meeting every Monday to make sure everyone knows what's coming up this week and what our targets are. And every day we do a quick stand-up just to make sure, see what everyone's doing, everyone's aware of what's going on, and if anyone's stuck on something, we can make sure they can move forward. So we're a small enough team that we can just all be on the same stand-up. We don't need to split it out or just have a chat-only one like I know some companies do. Everyone's fine to sort of have a quick 5 to 10 minute meeting in the morning and move on from there. And then we just, whenever people are moving to different time zones or whatever, we just make adjustments, and it's not too bad.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's switch to the way that I met you, actually.
Yeah.
Because this is something that I sort of want to get out a little bit as well. And I run this site, Simmer.io. Here's our upload page, and it sort of makes it a drag and drop to bring your Unity WebGL game into the browser and available for other people to play. So can you tell us a little bit about how you used Simmer or for your Kickstarter project?
Yeah. I guess the first thing I did was type into Google how to put my WebGL game easily online, which is like it's non-trivial to do it on your own. Like, Unity will generate this really ugly, template for you that you can.
I know it well.
You have to put it on a web server, right? Like, it's a big, and so Simmer came up in some results or forum links at least, and it was super straightforward to get going on that. And yeah, so what we were looking for that was with Eon's End, with One Deck Dungeon, our previous project, we had done basically just some captures in video. So we didn't have a playable demo or anything for the Kickstarter. But we thought for Eon's End, we had a little more time to prepare for the Kickstarter. And so we thought, maybe we can do a playable demo. And, and since Unity WebGL had come so much further, like, I think even when we were doing One Deck Dungeon and Sentinels before, the old way of Unity web player was the thing, right? And WebGL was still sort of
Right.
in beta at that point. But with once we got to doing the Aeon's End, WebGL was pretty mature, or mature enough for Unity, and so we decided to start looking at that. So I still, before even going to Simmer, I started looking at, can we actually, build something and have it perform in a browser reasonably enough?
Right.
And that seemed to be okay. We ended up having to do a lot of optimization passes on it.
Oh, really?
To mostly for, I think, like code size, and just to make the download not take 5 minutes to start.
Right.
Because you can end up pulling in all kinds of other assets and stuff into the build that you don't really want by accident.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so, but Simmer made it really easy to iterate on upload, do a build in Unity, upload it, drag and drop into Simmer, and and hit play. Ran into some caching issues, I think, that we had.
They're still there. I'm working on it. I have a million things going on.
Yeah, but yeah, that all ended up resolving itself anyways, over a day. So, but generally, it was pretty good, and I think that made a pretty big impact on the Kickstarter, that we could drop it right in the page or have people link out to the full screen.
Yeah, right. That's you guys are the only ones that have used that so far as I know. My analytics are not great, but that's something that I'm going to start pushing a little bit harder. Is people embedding these games in places like Kickstarter, and if they have a personal Patreon where they're maybe a tutorial author or something like that. So you can put it straight up in the page, right?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, you just embed it as if it's a video, and Kickstarter's like, okay, here's your video, but it's actually a game.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hack, but it works. All right, so. Yeah. Sorry about all that plug, even though you're the one that's supposed to do the plug since I'm interviewing you.
No, that's totally fine.
Okay, so I'm just looking at my notes. I'm just wondering, so you've been in indie games for 10 years, or you've been working with Jeremy for 10 years, and at least more than half of that was games.
Yep.
I hear the words indie-pocalypse and a number of other things. How do you think the landscape of indie games has changed over the years?
That's interesting. Yeah, I think you sort of think indie games is almost like indie rock. There was a sound of indie rock, in the mid 2000s, but now it can mean almost anything.
Right.
And that's the same thing with indie games. In the early 2000s, or sorry, for indie games more early 2010s, right? And it meant platformers that are weird almost, right? A lot of the games were, Braid and that sort of thing were really cool, but yeah, so it's let's take a sort of an older genre and mix it up, or just even take a new genre and make the graphics look old. But there's been so much more coming out over the last few years that really just say what is a game and what is an experience, right? And it doesn't have to be the way, right? It doesn't have to be the way that it always was. You can have, an experience that is going to make you feel something and isn't, you don't win, you don't lose, it just happens, right? So that's one corner, a big corner of indie stuff. But then there's still all of the genre stuff that is still really interesting too. So I think it's just expanded so much more. That also makes it difficult to get noticed, for sure. But there's, I think, a lot more options for building a community, which is a great way to you don't need to be known across the world, right, to have success. You just need to build a community of enough to keep going, right? And so that's what we found with our communities around our games is, you have sort of a core of for us, it's 1 to 10,000 people, right? They're really big fans of what we're doing, and they're sort of anything we sort of make, they're going to be interested in just by virtue of they've been following us and they've been playing our games and they're really into it. Right. And then there's sort of a bubble effect of that where, they're telling their friends and there's awareness around that. But, when we first started making, Sentinels, we're oh, we could get this, to 1 million people within 2 years or whatever. It's that's not really super realistic for for the small market, but you really don't need to go that big. Like you can, and if you get lucky, something can happen, but you can still, pay the bills and make the next game and keep moving forward, building what you want to build. And it doesn't need to be a world settled on fire kind of thing.
Cool.
And I think that's a lesson that I think a lot of people, they start making games and they see something like Braid, or they see something like Minecraft, right? Where it's like, yes, that could happen, but it's like also you could become an NBA star. Like,
well, and there's the whole thing about the Roxio people that did Angry Birds, and it was their 25th game or something like that. So
exactly. It's not going to be necessarily your first thing, and you keep trying and keep working on it, and I think there's always what's the measure of success. I think you don't have to measure it in dollars. You don't have to measure it in download numbers. It's like you can measure it in numbers, I guess, but you can decide what success means for you, right? And it doesn't have to be what other people think about it.
Right, and you're for instance living the life you want to lead, where you can go and travel and do things like that. So I definitely think that's a really good point. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, sort of related, and that is that community building that you mentioned. It seems like you're really good at that, or at least you put out a lot of content all the time. I was on YouTube watching episode number 235 of Handelabra Games, which I believe that's a Twitch stream that you also put online. Is that right?
Yep.
On YouTube. So you get on there at least once a week and sort of have an event for your fans. Is that one of the things that you do, or?
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting part of it. So I think we started doing Twitch streaming, live streams in late 2014 after Sentinels came out, and we just sort of did it as like, we saw how popular streaming was. We actually one of the throwing money in a hole marketing things we did was like get promoted streamers to try to stream our game, and you can pay thousands of dollars to have someone stream your game, right?
Right.
And we just found that wasn't an effective marketing, at least at the time for us. I'm sure it can be effective for some at sometimes, but it wasn't for us. But it also made us think about like, why don't we just start streaming our game, right? Like, we're the developers. We can, give insights into things. We can show stuff that isn't out yet. We can, bring fans on as a special treat, like all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
And so we started, we just were like, let's give it a try. Let's do a few streams. And we ended up sort of keeping to a once a week schedule. And we've been doing that for like 5 years. I guess 5 years now almost.
Right.
And part of,
and it seemed like you didn't get like a ton of views, at least on the YouTube recording, but I mean, there's thousands of views on some of them, over and over again, and you get that every week, and reminds people that you're around, right? Yeah,
and it becomes like it's like I was actually reading more about other like sort of streaming. There's like, it's really tough as an individual to start getting an audience in streaming as well, and it even is as a company. But we sort of had a bit of a step up by having our customers already. We could say, oh, I see a kitty. We had our customers already. We could be like, hey, send them an email and say, hey, come watch our stream. So we were able to start, not from zero, but from, having at least a few dozen people. Mm-hmm. But it helps us, like, we can organize our general marketing around that. So we'll often, we'll make big announcements or launch parties on the stream. We do listening parties when there's new music for the games. Sort of tie a lot of stuff around that. And I think within a year or two, it might have been 2 years in, 1 or 2 years in, we decided to expand our streaming a little bit and not just have me and Jeremy every week, but also have bring in some new streamers to join the team. And so we actually have 3 other streams every week that most of them came from people who are fans of the game already and were already streamers. And we approached them like, are you interested in streaming under our company banner? And, being part of our channel, and then, cross-marketing with their own channel and everything as well, of course. And that's been a real success. And, each of those streams, we have Dolphins Dive, That's a really strategy-minded one. We have Tales from the Archive. That's a really like story-based one where he'll like build a story and play the game like along according to the story. So maybe not necessarily playing the best strategy, but like telling a story as he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a brother-sister team doing an on deck, which is a different dynamic too, right? The other two are solo streamers, and then on deck is sort of brother-sister banter, and it's pretty funny and entertaining. And they're streaming our games as well. So that's been really interesting to mix up the marketing and mix up the content that we have on a weekly basis. I haven't really seen a lot of companies doing, like small companies doing streaming like we do, but there's a little bit out there. But I think it's a really interesting way to do it. And then, as you said, it goes to YouTube and it becomes like a permanent content archive that, like, someone wants to see how our games play. Well, like, here, there's thousands of hours now or whatever.
Right. It made it easy for me to sort of learn a little bit more. Like I said, I'm not a super big board games buff, but it was nice to sort of, okay, this is how this works, and watching you and Jeremy play the game and stuff like that, I thought was really cool. So good work with everything. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Let me see if anything from what I sent you. Oh yeah, we should talk about Spirit Island, our next.
Yes,
project.
We definitely should talk about that. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, so Spirit Island is a pretty popular cooperative game that came out in 2017, I think, on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And it's by Greater Than Games, and it turns the genre of colonial board gaming onto its head. So you're used to Settlers of Catan and Puerto Rico, mm-hmm. and these other games where the whole game is about building your colony and prospering, and there's no one else there, right?
Oh, right.
So everything's fine.
I'm sorry. I'm actually I'm putting the game on in front of the screen here.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I have. I've just went to your little website and looking at the how to play part right now. So cool. So it's a Settlers of Catan game where there's more of an outside influence. Is that what you were mentioning?
Right. So what I was saying is, so the designer Eric Royce sort of looked at all of these games that were about settling and about the colonization, and realized there's no games about the other side, right? Mm-hmm. About what's happening to the people who are there, who are being colonized. And what he came up with was the game Spirit Island, which is called a settler destruction game. Ah. So what happens in Spirit Island is the players play these spirits that have been around for millennia on this remote island, and they've always been on the island. And there are natives to the island who, they weren't always there, but they came to the island. There's a whole history of what happened in the game, right, in the lore. But basically, they came to an agreement, and they've been peacefully there. The Dahan, they're the natives there.
Right.
And now Europeans have been invading the island and colonizing it. And
are they the little purple guys, the Dahans? I'm looking at the video right now.
Yeah, the Dahan are the little brown sort of hut tokens.
Okay.
And the colorful things are the spirit presence. So the spirits have presence around the island. But basically what happens is the game plays Settlers of Catan against you. They explore the island, they build towns, they build cities, they damage the island, they kill the Dahan, and over the course of the game, as the spirits, your goal is to terrify and generate fear and drive the invaders off the island so they come back. So it turns the whole genre on its head. It really, it's really a really strong commentary, on historical perspectives.
Indeed.
It's really, topical as well, right? So it's really grabbed the imagination of the board game community. And it's, aside from all that, it's a really, really good puzzly, strategic co-op game. One of the really nice gameplay aspects of it is it doesn't really allow for alpha gaming, which you kind of can get in a game like Pandemic, where one player's like, oh, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and we win, right? There's just too much going on in Spirit Island, and each spirit has too many different things that it can do, that's not really feasible in a tabletop environment for one person to do that. I'm sure there are some people who try, but they're not going to do well. But so that aspect of it, I think, makes it a little more approachable for a lot of players on the tabletop. And so bringing it to digital is really exciting for us. We've been talking to them about doing it for a number of years, and it's from Greater Than Games, the same company that did Sentinels. So we already have a great partnership with them.
Right. Well, it looks great. I'm looking at the how-to video with the actual board game version, and I'm sure you guys are going to make a really beautiful rendition. If Aeon's End or Eon's End, I keep saying it wrong.
That's what no.
Is any indication. So really looking forward to that. I did support you guys on the Eon's End Kickstarter, and when you guys come out with the next one, I'll make sure to get on there and get my ass in gear with this tabletop gaming.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, Spirit Island is actually we're really experienced with co-op games in the digital space, but it's actually the first board game that we've done. Like all of other games don't actually have a board.
They're all card version.
Cards and dice and stuff. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So we're playing with how do we represent that in a 3D space and that sort of things, and how can we take advantage of the platform. And we're planning for the crowdfunding project to show some of that, but it's not going to be everything because we haven't obviously finished the game or anything yet, but it's going to show the direction that we're moving in.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. I think that maybe some people learned some things, and hopefully some of the indie gamers that are on the Simmer site learn a little bit more about what it really means to run a business in games, because a lot of folks that are there are just getting started or doing solo projects, which is a great way to start. But I think people learned a lot here, so thank you very much for the discussion.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat, and definitely would. I'd like to mention that really the best thing you can do if you want to be making games is just get in there and make a game. Like start messing around and start doing it and upload it to Simmer. You never know.
Yeah, put it out there. I mean, you don't have to use Simmer, but get it out there. Don't let it fester away on your hard drive. That's what I've been telling people all the time, and
absolutely.
It's led to a lot of opportunities for me just putting my stuff online. So, use Simmer, use Itch, use whatever you want, but get it out there.
Yep.
All right, cool. I'm just going to shut off the camera, and then we can just wrap up real quick outside of it.
Sure.
Stop recording.